There are 5 questions a real man of the family never answers. They don't sound like an interrogation. They never look like a trap. They sound warm, almost brotherly, like the man asking cares about you more than you care about yourself. That's exactly why they're dangerous. The sharpest blade in the outfit never catches the light. It sits inside the sleeve of a man who just embraced you. Every capo who ever climbed past soldier learned this the hard way. Usually once, usually early, usually at a table he still remembers the smell of. The confession booth doesn't sit in a church for men like this. It sits at a dinner table, over wine, dressed as concern. And the men who talk their way through that dinner, who answer warmly because warmth was offered to them first, they rarely notice the exact second the table turned into a courtroom. The old dons understood something the young soldiers never did. A family doesn't collapse from an enemy's bullet. It collapses from a sentence spoken at the wrong table, in one unguarded minute. One careless answer has cost entire families their territory, their standing, their quiet. History remembers the raids, the trials, the headlines. It rarely remembers the small dinner 3 years earlier where one man, feeling safe, said one sentence too many. That sentence did more damage than any indictment that followed it, because an indictment needs proof, and proof has to be built. A sentence spoken freely needs nothing. It's already there, already signed, already impossible to take back. 5 of them live inside every family that ever mattered. They surface in back rooms, in restaurants over wine gone sour, in cars parked on streets with no witnesses. You've heard them before, maybe this week, maybe from someone who calls you brother. You just never had a name for what they were doing to you, and a threat without a name is the only kind that ever gets through the door. The first question arrives dressed as an afterthought. You're not against this, are you? It comes after, always after. The money from the shared purse is already spent. The decision that touched your share was already made without you at the table. Your name was already used in an arrangement nobody bothered to mention. Only once the thing is finished does someone toss the question over their shoulder, almost casually. You're not against this, are you? Ask yourself what it actually is. A courtesy wrapped around a message that's already been delivered. Say no, and you look small in front of men who already settled the matter. So the soldier nods. He says everything's fine, Don. And in that nod, the capo learns the only thing he needed to know. This man can be used again. Next time, the line moves further. Every silent signature you put on someone else's decision raises the ceiling of what can be taken from you without asking. Watch how the line moves across a year, not a single night. The first time, it's a small share, spent without a word, a rounding error nobody would fight over. The second time, it's a decision that touches your territory, made in a room you weren't invited into. By the third time, it's your own name, signed to an arrangement you never saw. And by then, the objection you should have raised the first night has grown too heavy to lift. The men who ask this question aren't testing your patience. They're testing your ceiling, one small violation at a time, to see how high they can build before you finally push back. Most men never push back at all. They call it loyalty. It was never loyalty. It was simply the first door left unlocked. The second question wears the uniform of honor. Let me tell you the truth, brother to brother. Nobody in the family refuses honesty from a brother. Refusing looks like an insult. So you nod, you open up. And that's the exact moment the blow lands. A blow that was prepared long before the word "let" ever left his mouth. A real brother never asks permission to swing the truth at you. He simply says it, because loyalty doesn't need a warning shot fired first. Only the man who already knows he's about to wound you asks first, clearing his conscience in advance. Notice the choreography of it. First the warmth, brother to brother, softening the ground beneath you. Then the pause, waiting for your nod, your consent, your open door. Only then does the blade arrive, and by then you've already agreed to receive it, so you can't call it an ambush, even though that's exactly what it was. In the old families, that phrase, brother to brother, was worn most often by the ones already sharpening a betrayal. A man secure in his own position rarely needs to announce his honesty before delivering it. Announcement is the tell. Real omerta doesn't dress itself in the costume of honesty. It stays quiet, or it speaks straight, without the overture, without asking your permission to hurt you first. The third question flatters before it does anything else. What would you do in my place, Don? It lifts the older man, makes him feel respected, trusted, weighty. And that's exactly why the old Dons answered it rarely, and regretted it for years whenever they did. Advice given inside another man's problem chains you to another man's outcome forever. If things turn out well, the credit walks off with the one who asked. If things collapse, he'll remember every word, and he'll say it in front of the whole table. You told me to do this yourself. Flattery is the oldest currency in every family, older than money, older than territory. A man asking what you'd do in his place isn't hunting for wisdom. He's hunting for a name to attach to whatever happens next. And your name is cheaper to spend than his own. Give the answer, and you've quietly volunteered to carry weight that was never yours to lift. Refuse outright, and you look cold, distant, unwilling to share what a Don is supposed to share. The wise capo finds the third path. He never carries a burden that isn't his to carry, and he never insults the man who asked. He offers exactly one line. The decision is yours. I'm only standing beside you. Nothing more leaves his mouth, no matter how long the silence after it stretches. The fourth question hunts for a name. Who told you? A soldier gets caught in a lie. Instead of owning it, he turns the conversation into a chase for the source. The talk that should have been about his betrayal becomes a hunt for whoever exposed him. And the shift happens so smoothly, most men never notice they've switched sides in their own conversation. Give up the name, and you've done two things at once. Betrayed the one who trusted you with it, and handed the man who just got caught a fresh target, someone to silence for good. The old code called this the ugliest kind of treason. Lie to the family first, then destroy the one who saw through the lie. A man cornered by his own dishonesty will always try to make the exposure the crime instead of the dishonesty itself, because attacking the messenger is easier than facing what the message revealed. The man who keeps his mouth shut about the source, even with a blade pressed against him, becomes the wall the whole family leans its back against. Sources dry up the moment word spreads that a name was given up under pressure. Silence, here, isn't stubbornness. It's the only thing keeping the whole structure from talking itself apart. The fifth question is the root of the other four. You trust me, don't you? This one opens every door at once. Say yes, of course, and you've surrendered your right to question anything this man does from that day forward. When he decides something on your behalf, you stay quiet because you trust him. When he wounds you with a piece of honesty, you swallow it because you trust him. When he hands you a burden that was always his, you carry it without a word, because you trust him. When he asks who exposed his own lie, you'll feel the pull to answer, because you trust him. One small word, yes, becomes a note he takes out as a loan against you and never fully repays. In the old families, trust was never spoken aloud. It lived inside years of tested, unannounced loyalty, not inside a sentence uttered in one weak minute. Only a man whose actions haven't yet earned trust asks for it directly. So the real soldier of the family answers none of it, not yes, not no. He says one thing only: I trust what I see, not what I hear. Short, level. No explanation offered afterward, because an explanation is a door left open for the next question. Watch how these 5 questions travel together through a room. They rarely arrive alone. The first one strips you of a decision. The second one wounds you under the flag of honesty. The third one loads you with a weight that was never yours. The fourth one turns you into either a traitor or a target. And the fifth one, the root beneath the other 4, quietly disarms every objection you might have raised against the rest. A man who has already given his yes to the 5th question has, without realizing it, pre-signed his answer to all the others. The other 4 barely need to be asked at all, once the 5th one has already landed and settled. Ask which question came first in your own life, and you'll usually find the 5th one standing behind all the others, already answered before you noticed you'd answered it. That's the particular cruelty of it. Nobody remembers agreeing to trust someone completely. It happens gradually, across 100 small kindnesses, 100 favors extended at exactly the right moment, until one day the trust is simply assumed, a fact of the room rather than a decision anyone can point to. And a fact nobody remembers agreeing to is the hardest kind of debt to ever collect back. There's a reason these particular 5 survive across every generation of every family that ever mattered. They don't attack the body, they attack the mouth. And a family, unlike a rival crew, is never destroyed from the outside first. It rots from a table where somebody talked too freely, where somebody said yes to keep the peace, where somebody explained himself instead of simply deciding. The commission never worried about the soldiers who stayed silent under pressure. It worried about the ones who filled silence with words the moment warmth was offered instead of a threat. A threat any fool can resist. Warmth disarms the wariest men alive, because the instinct built to survive a knife was never built to survive an embrace. Consider how differently a controlled man carries himself at that same table. He hears the first question and feels nothing shift in his face, because he already expected the arrangement to arrive dressed as a favor. He hears the second and simply waits, because he knows that real honesty never asks permission before it speaks. He hears the third and gives back the weight immediately, wrapped in one calm sentence, because he refuses to carry another man's decision on his own shoulders. He hears the fourth and offers silence instead of a name, because a name spoken under pressure buys him nothing but a shorter leash. And he hears the fifth, and instead of surrendering a yes or a no, he gives an answer that closes the conversation rather than opening 5 more behind it. This restraint doesn't make him cold. It makes him unreadable. And unreadable is the only currency that holds its value once the family sits down at the table. The men who talk freely, who explain themselves at length, who answer every warm question, with an equally warm yes. They don't stay soldiers for long. They become instruments, used once, used twice, and eventually discarded the moment their usefulness runs out. The men who answer in a single measured line, the ones who let silence finish their sentences for them, they're the ones a capo hesitates before testing again. Hesitation, in this world, is the closest thing to respect a table ever hands out for free. There's an old story passed between the families about a soldier who answered every one of these 5 questions correctly for 11 years straight. Not once with charm, not once with cleverness, just with restraint. The same short lines, repeated without variation, until the men around him stopped bothering to ask. They already knew what he'd say before he said it. And a man whose answers can be predicted in advance, who can never be caught loose-lipped in a moment of warmth, becomes something closer to architecture than to a person. Untouchable simply because there was never a loose thread left hanging for anyone to pull. Compare that to the men who fell. Almost none of them fell to an enemy family. Almost all of them fell to a friend who asked one of these 5 questions at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right tone, at a table where the wine had loosened something that should have stayed locked. The blade never needed to be drawn. The question did the work the blade was built for, quietly, in under a minute, over a dinner that looked, from the outside, like nothing at all. 5 questions. Think of each one as a key rather than a threat. A bullet only ever ends one soldier's body, contained, singular, over in a moment. A word pulled out of you at the wrong hour, in the wrong warmth, at the wrong table, can cost an entire family its silence, its strength, its territory, its power, all of it at once. And nobody ever hears a shot fired. That's the part the young soldiers never grasp until the damage is already sitting on the table in front of them. The Commission doesn't fear the men outside its walls. Rival crews announce themselves. Rival crews can be measured, watched, prepared for. What the Commission fears is the warmth already sitting inside its own rooms, waiting for someone to answer one question too honestly, one time too many. The old dons carried a particular kind of stillness into every dinner, every back room, every quiet car ride down an empty street. Not suspicion exactly, something closer to discipline. The habit of a man who has learned that the softest voice in the room is usually the one doing the most damage. Power loves silence. Subscribe to Mafia Codex. Join the family. We'll see you behind closed doors.